Whenever a company or studio does poorly, there are certainly consequences. Consequences are on the way. Inside the Walt Disney Company, and specifically with Lucasfilm. Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny is a historically bad film, not just in terms of its artistic merit, but also in terms of the amount of money that it will lose. Willow is a streaming show that was made into a big deal, only to be an even bigger deal as a tax write-down. The Star Wars movies have likely lost money. We're talking about Solo, a Star Wars movie. We're talking about the rise of Palpatine. You may call it Skywalker. Most do not. And now, we've got big news out of Lucasfilm. Strap in, folks. This is the one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video of excellence here on the WDW Pro channel. Look at the panel we have. Look at all of these beautiful people looking back at you. And yes, you are a beautiful person as well. And now that we've given you that compliment, would you do us the honor of clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and stick it to the algorithms? When you click it, it's the notification bell. All right, it's time to get into a big-time conversation. As we do, folks, I need to remind you of the track record here. I don't do so in order to toot the horn or to be braggadocious, but only in order to give you the level of gravitas I think this conversation deserves. You see, years ago, I was the very first one to talk about a Luke Skywalker CGI rendition coming to The Mandalorian. I broke that first, and I was very careful with it because I didn't want to be dropping spoilers. You'll remember that at that point, The Mandalorian was quite popular, and I didn't want to ruin people's experience of the show, but I did bring that out in a very careful way. Then, earlier this year on this channel, I broke exclusively, before anyone else, that Daisy Ridley was returning as Rey, that she would be coming back and getting her own movie, and we went into great detail. Lauren Connor, who's here on the panel today, was in that video with the folks from Echo Base Network, and Valiant Renegade was also there, except he was not on screen. He was eating popcorn and laughing because he was watching the faces of disgust and sadness as they appeared on them.
I had the displeasure of knowing what was coming. Yeah.
That's right. And we've had more stuff that we've covered here. We've talked about how the Acolyte is real, and yes, it is. We've covered all sorts of things. We've talked about what was going to happen at Star Wars Celebration, and it played out exactly the way we said it would. Folks, you can go back and watch the videos, check the track record, go click on the playlist called Rumors and Leaks, and see how we're doing. Today, it's time to do another one. But I need to specify, this video is based on rumor and speculation. It comes from a source, multiple sources, and I cannot independently verify what they have said. I cannot corroborate it. However, again, the track record stands. Use salt. Let's dive in right now. All right, panel, here's the news. From the source that I have regarding Lucasfilm and the situation over there, I am told that Kathleen Kennedy will not be seeking a renewal or extension of her contract, which ends in 2024. Now, I am told, although I cannot verify this independently, I am told that Kathleen Kennedy has negotiations still in place for the third week of August. That's this August. And her contract, as it is constantly constituted, will run out late next year. Now, I want to go around before we get into more of this story, this leak, this rumor that I have. Let's get thoughts on this story. Lauren, what do you think is the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy?
It's going to be mixed. She's still going to be mentioned whenever you're talking about the history of movies that Spielberg and Lucas were associated with in the 80s. That's always going to be a part of her legacy. You can argue about how responsible she was for those successes. I think we would probably collectively attribute more of that success to Spielberg and Lucas and also Frank Marshall, her husband. But I don't think history is going to look kindly on her tenure at Lucasfilm at all. She's always going to be remembered as the one who buried these franchises. Now, if somebody is able to come along afterwards and somehow resuscitate them, and I think that's a stretch, if they're able to do that, that doesn't really redound to her benefit at all. all. But it may at least throw a little dust up in the air, and 20 years down the line, we won't be talking about her so much. On the other hand, if these brands are truly dead, you're going to see all kinds of books written at some point in the future. Her name will go down in infamy.
Great points. All right, freeform right here, folks. What do you think about the idea that Kathleen Kennedy will not be getting a contract extension, and that she may have accepted that and will not even negotiate in a direction to try to seek one?
I can give you from the straight business side of things on this, and I can tell you that zero surprise here. You have talked about this. You and I have talked about this subsequently to summer of 2021, when, if memory serves, you were the first, if not one of the first, to talk about the fact that Kathleen Kennedy would be indeed and unfortunately renewed in that year. Kathleen Kennedy has had contract renewals that are in 3-year increments starting in 2012, October 1st of 2012, as per the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney at that point. Go back and find the Wall Street Journal articles on that matter. Kathleen Kennedy was renewed in 2015, right before The Force Awakens released, 2018, and then 2021, which we thought that 2021 would be perhaps the exit at that point, because the performance of the films over that length of time had been less than what Disney had hoped for. In fact, a lot less in the cumulative sense than what Disney had hoped for. She was, however, renewed. Coming out of the pandemic, all that kind of stuff, things that were popular on Disney Plus, driving Disney Plus like The Mandalorian. She apparently got a pass. They didn't know what else to do at that point, because it's always a matter of who do you find to replace somebody. Well, we've seen that Disney, from a board level perspective, is completely inept at selecting successors. Looking at you, Bob Iger, back again, and Wall Street is even calling them out on this. You had reported that she'd be renewed, that she'd be sticking around through the release of Indiana Jones 5. We are now at and past that point. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a fiscal disaster for Disney. There's no beating around that bush. There's nothing left for her to do. There are no Lucasfilm properties left for her to destroy.
Well, so, that's going to be part of what we talk about in just a moment. So
yeah, so I think that all of this fits, all of this makes sense, and I can tell you my opinion on what's going down. We've seen Hollywood trades that have also been in agreement with your August news that, you know, a contract renegotiation is up sometime in August. This all makes sense. They're going to do this now ahead of next year, and if she is agreeing to retire, or she's saying she is going to retire at this point, it means that Disney has offered her something that she and Frank have found to be very amenable in terms of a cash or deferred compensation or stock or whatever kind of payout. Maybe executive producer credits for...
That's where this is going, yes. Okay, so yeah, Valiant,
all right.
You talked about Kathleen Kennedy being willing to leave, you know, that she has no more things to ruin. All right, well, we've done what I think most people watching the video will think is very positive. Let's handle another part. According to the source that I have, they believe that Kathleen Kennedy's side, and by the way, folks, let me say this. Kathleen Kennedy is not going to be in these negotiations as far as we know. She's not going to ride in on a black steed to Burbank. She's not going
lawyers for that.
Yeah, okay. This is going to be handled through attorneys, through representatives on both sides. Okay, like take all of the craziness out of this. This works the way that business always does. Mm-hmm. But I am told that one of the things that she wants is she wants EPs, and she wants executive producer credits on at least 2 theatrical releases going forward, and she wants actual creative consultation rights. Ooh. She wants to be on set for 2 future theatrical releases, even after she potentially exits Lucasfilm. I don't know that Disney is going to give that, and that's where this gets, when we talk about negotiations, she's got until 3rd quarter of next year. So we don't know how long these negotiations will go. This might be her opening salvo, but she wants to continue to be, on sets. She wants to be her name to be in the marquee. She wants to go to the premieres and the dining and all of that. So she's going to try to stick around. even if she's transitioned out of her role.
This doesn't seem smart from her standpoint. If she gets the EP credit, and if they negotiate that she can appear at the premieres and do all of that stuff, I don't know why she wouldn't just take that. If she continues to have some degree of creative control and these movies also bomb, that's only going to further cement that her legacy is just toast.
Well, to be fair to her, she probably doesn't see herself as the common factor in failure.
It. Yeah, that's it. It's the hubris and the arrogance of her. She thinks she's brilliant. She thinks, I think deep down, she honestly believes that she was an integral part of the successes of Indiana Jones and Star Wars from back in the day. I think she honestly believes that, working with Richard Donner on his projects, working with some of these other great creatives out there that her husband and that whole crew ran around with, I think she believes that she is a linchpin in all of this, and they can't do it without her. I think that is her attitude. She should be satisfied, you're right, Lauren, with just the EP credits, because those EP credits come with big paychecks with movies of that scale. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had nothing to do with this new Indiana Jones film, but they got EP credits, and they probably each got a couple of $1 million for it.
Right, and they're largely symbolic. I guess if she has the same kind of creative control that George had over the sequels, then fine. Let's do something like that. She can offer some script treatments. They can take a look at them. That's all.
I think probably, now this is my own subjective thought here. I think probably that creative control or creative input clause that she would be seeking is probably to let her be on the set at times. That's what I think it's about, and that again goes to clout. I think she wants to be seen as someone who is heavily influential in Hollywood, even as things go on. And so this is not part of what I've been told, but I do believe that she's going to be given some sort of legacy position opportunity. I don't know that to be true. Of course. That's outside of the purview of my source. But
they can name her. I was going to say real quick, they could name her an executive producer emeritus. She'll be forever an EP on everything Lucasfilm produces until the date of her death. This is a great retirement annuity for her, right? Because if Lucasfilm just puts out one title a year in the movie theater somehow, some way, that might be a couple of $1 million for her every year as an annuity payout until she's gone completely, like left Earth. But I mean, and they could totally do it. But I'm going to tell you what, if she's asking for 2 creative positions, that's a negotiation, because what she really wants is one.
And that's the Rey movie. I think it's the Rey movie.
That's exactly
right. Yeah,
that's the Rey movie.
Yep.
She wants to be involved from a creative standpoint on that. I think she's going to dig her heels in on that one, even though she shouldn't be by all rights in any position to negotiate for this because of the disaster that she's left in her wake. But that's what she's going to do.
Jonas, that would put her there until probably 2026 as well. Not there in terms of being on the throne of Lucasfilm, but there in terms of she still will be in the conversation.
Right. Yeah. And I'm reminded of all those on-set photos that have George Lucas in them, even though George Lucas, we know, doesn't have control, even though he does have deference in a lot of ways. I hope that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't have deference there at Lucasfilm right now. I think that's what she really wants. She wants to be Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, not asterisk, by the way, Kathleen Kennedy was also there.
Well, Michelle, let's go to the other big part of this. So there's sort of 2 here, one of which I can't talk about. But so here's what it's a little tricky here, but I am allowed to say one of these, and I'm really shocked that I got permission to do so. Again, folks, we're in rumor and speculation territory. Take this with a dose of salt. You get the idea. Mm-hmm. Michelle, I am told that the creative director position of Lucasfilm has been offered, and that it has been offered to Jon Favreau.
Yes.
It's a big deal. What I don't know is I don't think that he has agreed to it.
Okay. So I actually have a question that goes back to where you're talking about, especially with this new information. So if you're Jon Favreau and he accepts and becomes the, what did you say?
Creative director.
The creative
Dave Filoni's
director.
job now?
Yes. Yes, well, that's what I'm told. Now, I don't know if Dave Filoni would then drop down below. I assume he would. I don't know if he's demoted. I don't know what happens here. I don't know if they're But I know that Favreau, well, I don't know.
I can't see
I have been
Filoni
told
being
that
made
Favreau
head
has
of the
been
studio.
offered.
He doesn't have the chops
No.
for that.
No,
We'll get there in a moment too. Michelle, though, let's stay with you for the moment, though.
Okay, well, my thing is, if Favreau's given that day one, why is the first thing he does not X the Ray movie?
Well, that's a great question. The best answer I have to that,
Iger.
and okay, Steve, exactly. From what we know, okay, and let's do the timeline so folks understand what we're talking about here. Iger comes back as the CEO. The sequel trilogy is Iger's baby.
Mm-hmm.
Iger comes back within 2 weeks. Daisy Ridley is at Lucasfilm meeting with executives there.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like 2 weeks later, I'm out here announcing, hey, Daisy Ridley's coming. There's a Ray movie. Here's the parts of it. Here's what we know. Okay. We believe, although we don't know this one, and I want to make sure everybody knows this. I don't know this one, but we heavily believe that the Ray movie is an Iger initiative to try to redeem the sequel trilogy and the characters there. That's why I'm not sure that Favreau could come in and dismiss the Ray movie.
They could also put it in Kennedy's retirement contract because she's going to want that.
Right.
If that's what she's negotiating and had creative control over, they can't cack it the minute she walks out of the door.
Well, you also have to remember that Lucasfilm views this character as a positive character, and there's a lot positive about Ray. And Daisy Ridley is a great actress. I mean, or she's a charming actress. She's good looking. She has everything she needs to succeed, except for a proper movie that doesn't offend the fans.
See, I'm actually wondering if Bob Iger he just loves Daisy Ridley. I genuinely wonder that. Because if he's just like, he just sees her as something special, maybe like his own kid, and he's like, I want to like, I don't know, but it's weird.
It's all about his legacy. It's all about his legacy. If
she
Ray
is the face of that legacy, right?
if
Even
Ray
more than
gets
Marvel.
jettisoned, if Ray gets jettisoned, then it's egg on his face. He has to admit that this didn't work. So I got a couple questions, Pro. I have just tons of thoughts about
Well,
this.
before you do, Lauren, let me drop one more thing, and then that may help you with your questions.
All right.
So the other thing that I'm told is that Lucasfilm will not be led necessarily by Jon Favreau, even if he is the creative director of the studio. But rather, I am told that there will be a new head of the studio who may be on the same level as Jon Favreau, which would make this be a duality at the top. However, I'm not allowed to talk about who that might be. What I am allowed to say is that the person that they would like to get is outside of the company, period, to be brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And let me finish this. Okay. So the other part to this is that if they are unable to pull in the team that they need, that they may actually default to having Kennedy a little bit longer in order to get the right team in place. But I am told that if she stays a little bit longer in order to get the right team in place. So let's say that Favreau says, no, I don't want any part of this. You've created a hive of villainy. Let's say that they can't pull in this third party. If Kennedy stays, I am told this person is adamant. There will be no announcement, period. There will be no announcement that she has been kept on, that like you can count on. Nothing, no public statement out of Disney about it until she moves on. That will be when the public statement lands. Sure. That's it. They don't want any extra attention brought to her if she stays for 3 months, 6 months extra while they get the team in place. All right, that's what I've got, Lauren. Now go with your questions.
Okay, so I think you sort of answered one of them. I had a question as to whether this creative position was going to be limited to Lucasfilm or whether this was more Disney proper, because this was something
limited to Lucasfilm.
Okay, so this was something that had been discussed in the past with Favreau. My guess is that this is coming from Alan Bergman. Because he was the one that was kind of angling for Favreau to be moved up within Disney earlier, and he's got some clout right now.
Under the Chapek era. You're exactly right, Lauren. Man, you are on it. I'm just going to stop calling you a Lucasfilm aficionado. You're just flat out Disney, man.
Well,
continue on.
He's got some real clout right now, and he's got some real displeasure with Kathleen, especially after Indy 5. And so it's real good to have Alan Bergman in your corner for Jon Favreau. But if I was Jon, I'd be pretty upset about the position that he's in right now, both for what has happened in the past and because he's going to be essentially, if he takes this position, then he's going to be kind of pinned to a board for at least 3 years, where it's going to be difficult to do anything.
I was going to say, you're looking at 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, at least.
I wish I could tell you how this source says they know this stuff, Lauren. Maybe in private we can discuss it at some point.
I don't think
I love where you're at right now.
I don't think it's 5 to 8 years because he'll have that time. If I were John, what I would be doing is, if you offer me this position, it's going to be solidified that I have complete creative control, no interference with the studio. I'm going to build out your new universe, and you're going to stick to it. I'm not going to take notes. I'm going to build this. This is the way it's going to go.
John Favreau, if you're listening, listen to Lauren.
If they don't agree to that, don't take the job, John. And then, for that whole 3-year period, that's when you build your plan. And if I were him, let's not limit this to movies. I think what you have to do to start with is have a ground plan that brings in all of the different media. You have to have a plan for books. You have to have a plan for comics. You have to have a plan for toys. You have to have a plan for TV shows. You have to have a plan for video games. And this is where you start building your foundational lore to build up hype and excitement, to go to that big theatrical release, to build anticipation, to get buy-in from the users. And you also use it as a test bed for your ideas. You find out what's working. What are people actually engaging with? What are they speculating about? And then you pull that into your big releases. Now, the problem is that you can have all these plans, but as long as they're still doing the Kennedy stuff and the Ray stuff, all of that kind of has to be in the background, and you're just sort of sitting there waiting for the point where we can go, this crap is behind us now, let's start with something new. So that means...
Or you put Ray and Ahsoka on a ship, and they pull a Holdo maneuver into a sun.
So let's speculate right now, and I want to clarify, because there are many rumors out there right now. We strongly believe that Skeleton Crew is coming out later this year. Mm-hmm. We strongly believe that The Acolyte, based on what was brought out on the Renegade Online show yesterday, strongly believe, and this comes down even to, Disney could be fined in the UK for not doing so, because they've already taken
yes, they've already taken tax write-offs.
Yes. So The Acolyte, we believe, is coming out in 2024. Now, beyond that, things get very shaky. Here's what I'm wondering. Let's think about it. Kathleen Kennedy allegedly wants 2 theatrical releases with EP credits and some degree of creative control. Does she want that because she's trying to safeguard 2 theatrical releases by making them contractually obligated per what she has agreed to, so that they will come out and so that they will continue whatever it is that she's been attempting to do at Lucasfilm, The Force is Female, what have you? What do you all think is why is she making that play? Is it just about money, or is it about tying the hands of whoever comes in and tries to take over Lucasfilm?
I think it's hubris and wanting to tie the hands. And this is why, to Lauren's point, I think you're right. At 3 years, I agree with your point. I also agree with Floral's point. I think he will be signed like everybody else for 3 years if he were to even take the job. And I've always had my doubts of Favreau taking a studio employment. This is a big change.
Yep. And Gollum Creations, which is his company, he would not be able to be engaged with that to the degree that he has been. So I don't know that he takes this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the problem with this. But if he takes it, 3 years is what they would contract him at, just like they would with Kennedy. But he's probably going to wind up sticking around 5 to 8 years, because he's going to reach a point at the end of 3 years. He's only going to be getting to where principal photography might be launching on the first piece or something along those lines. He's going to want to see it all the way through, because he may not trust whoever is still there that he can or cannot get rid of. Looking at you, Story Group, garbage. But real quick on that end is that, look, if he stays, great. But him going from I can't do, I can do what I want right now and still make independent movies like Chef that I want to do, versus just nothing but whatever Disney corporate tells me. Because at the end of the day, even as at that position, he still has to do what the Bergmans and the Igers will want him to do, short of them contractually obligating him to certain things, or he obligating them. But I laughed earlier with the whole co-studio head position, because it's exactly what I've been telling people that Lucasfilm probably should do for the last 2 years. You have to have somebody who's running the studio business side of things that does not have any authority contractually over creative. That's the only way this is going to work at this point. You
cannot got to constrain the budgets.
Yeah,
but here's the thing.
Out of this world.
It's what DC just did.
Exactly.
And they're going to replicate DC. And
that's exactly it.
And Favreau and Gunn, they are peers, right? And so when you consider like think about any other group or business or whatever, you always have like that group of peers that all kind of graduate at the same time and move into the same kind of roles around the same time. These guys, they're at that age where they're moving into those kinds of roles. So so I can see Favreau doing it. I can still see him saying, like, I'm going to be like Gunn. I'm going to have my hands in the pudding. I don't want to deal with the numbers. I don't want to deal with the business side. But 5 to 8 years, because he wants to be able to establish that thing. Because 8 years, you're looking at 3 movies at most.
Right? And you might be right. At this age, he's looking at this like, well, I just want to fix this because I'm so frustrated with it. Because I can tell you, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there's no way that Jon Favreau was going to tie himself to any one studio. Because going from being a free independent contractor, hey, you want me to do Mando? I'm making Mando for you. I'm the house builder, and I'm out. Versus now, he's a contracted W-2 employee. He's an executive inside of a studio at Disney. He's in an entirely different corporate hierarchy than he is now. He's his own boss right now.
I got a thought about that, though, and that is that he shares a lot in common with George Lucas in that he's a tech nerd.
Yes, he is.
And ILM gives him all kinds of opportunities to play with and push the technology.
That's
true. The downside for John is that
Star Wars.
He's been burned, and I think there's probably it can't be as much fun to be doing this now that I suspect his original plans got derailed. There's also the question of, did his original plans actually get derailed, or did he himself falter? We don't really know for sure. And so I think that whether he's still having fun probably has a lot to do with this. But if I were him, like you said, I would push hard on having more than a 3-year contract. At the very least, to get this thing going again, you got to go, I think, a minimum of, I'd say 8 to 9. And I don't know.
I have to ask a question about current Star Wars here, because I have not really been tracking Ahsoka. I saw the trailer. Is that supposed to be Favreau, or is that supposed to be mostly Filoni?
All Filoni.
Lauren, you brought up the fact that we don't know what's going on with Favreau and what happened with some of these series and the quality dip. Was there not just an interview, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, there was an interview where he admitted that things were changed from their original plan after season 2 of The Mandalorian? Was there not just an interview where he talked about that?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I gather that was likely in the context of what happened with Gina, and then you had the pandemic and everything else, and so a significant retooling had to happen. Rangers of the New Republic went away.
And that's, by the way, where we think that Luke Skywalker was supposed to train Baby Yoda Grogu was Rangers, which we talked about that in the past, but then it had to be thrown into Book of Boba Fett in 2 episodes,
which also derailed that. So yeah.
Well. Maybe that one needed to be derailed. Michelle, so whoever this is that comes in, okay, we don't know that it's going to be Favreau because they may not be able to come to an agreement. We don't know, if Kennedy leaves late next year. We assume that that's very likely now. But she may stay on an extra 3 months, 6 months if a team needs to be put in place and if that's not, feasible. That's sort of the same thing they're doing with Christine McCarthy, sort of, right? She's staying on as a consultant as long as they need her. But Michelle, what would be your advice to someone coming in as the head of Lucasfilm Creative now? What would you tell them to do to begin turning Star Wars back towards something that is profitable?
So I think it would kind of begin with a publicity I'm sorry tour for everything we've put Lucasfilm fans through for the last several years. Secondly, I would give Favreau the ability to bring Gina Carano back with a statement released about you took drastic measures you shouldn't have. I would let him do that. Then I would probably, as Valiant has said many times, let Star Wars lie for a few years while I began to plot out what I wanted. And then personally, I would, and I've never actually played this game, I just know the absolute love fans have. I would start with a new Knights of the Old Republic like trilogy, like, and make it really just like what the fans think it should be from the source material. That's where I would start.
What you want to do is
this a few times.
you want to start the Low Republic Publishing Initiative.
The Low Republic. Well, so here's the deal. You know, this is highly speculative. It's rumor at this point. We've had a lot of corroborations on these leaks in the past. I'm not here to tell people, you know, that absolutely this is 100% right, because people can change their minds. So can corporations. And we don't know what's going to happen in these negotiations. I can just tell you that, you know, look at the track record and see. And then I hope that this is a fun conversation. If we get this wrong, we'll be out there and we'll say it. And we'll apologize if we got this wrong. This is our best understanding at this point. We're not there. We're not going to be there in the meetings with the negotiations on her contract. So this is just the best info that we can bring. I'm not here to tell you, though, that this is some sort of extraordinarily exciting thing where, you know, there's not going to be something massively dramatic happening, I think, behind the scenes. This is going to be happening with, you know, what would you almost like bureaucrats, corporate bureaucrats. You know, that's what we've got here. So I'm going to give it to the panel. Final thoughts on the, I guess the story here is Kathleen Kennedy coming to a close, and maybe we end it here with a conversation real quick about, is this redeemable, or has she completely sunk the ship?
I think that you could get audiences excited, but I think they need to call me up and take my plan. I think you have to start with basically, we're sorry statements to a degree. Like you don't have to say it that blunt.
Do they get rid of the sequel trilogy in some way, somehow, to some degree?
Yeah. I mean,
do you have to? I think you have to.
No,
I would almost want to decanonize, like,
start over. They took away the extended universe. Yeah. Do it again.
Here's the thing. The normies are starting to get wind of Kathleen Kennedy, which is probably the whole reason we're at this point. But I don't think they really care. I think Kathleen Kennedy being gone also probably won't move the stock price much. I think the announcement that someone talented like Favreau is the other move there that can increase the stock price for the Walt Disney Company, saying, yes, we're doing Star Wars with Jon Favreau, the guy who directed Iron Man, the guy who is, I'm struggling. We don't, and we'll try to forget
King,
that
he's made so much money for Disney, it's stupid.
I mean, the guy who gave us Grogu. I mean, let's be real. Right. He made a lot of money.
So this is Favreau coming in is step 2 in actually making the ship right. I don't see them doing a quote unquote decanonization. If anything they do, they'll try to make people forget, because while we love Star Wars, we got to remember it's still just a film series. I mean, the Fast and the Furious people, like, so many people have died and just come back. I don't know that they've even explained why people that died came back in those films. The memory of the audience is shorter than I think people like us can give them credit for. I think they just need to move on and make something good, because they will be forgiven as soon as they make something good that isn't offensive. And not on Disney Plus in theaters. No Disney Plus.
I'm going to give you a talking to after this stream about saying it's just a series of movies. You and I need to have a conversation.
It's their fault for making it that. It's not I'm not the one who made it just a series of movies.
There you go. Well, any other thoughts before we wrap this up, folks?
I think it all sounds good.
Lauren is about to shoot Jonas, and I'm kind of in the middle of it.
Lauren, what do you have? Lauren gets the final word here.
One small thing, and it's more about tone and theme of Star Wars, and something I think they've forgotten a little bit in some of the recent endeavors. They've sort of forgotten about ships and space combat. I can't remember the last time we actually had a Star War. So maybe get back to some of that. We really like the tech stuff.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. We want to reiterate again, rumor and speculation. We're trying to get leaks out of Lucasfilm. We know it's not the most scandalous thing you've ever heard, but for some of you, this is the news you've been waiting for a very long time, coming from, I hope, a channel that has earned some credibility with you. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. The conversation has come to a close, but it commentary begins. Drop your comments down below. Tell us what you think about all of this. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? What about the details? And is Star Wars too late for saving? Can they redeem Indiana Jones even? And, well, none of us believe Willow's ever coming back. But tell us what you think. And, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing. Go subscribe to these other guests on this panel. And keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.